Coach, now that you just had a couple days to kind of digest everything that happened on Tuesday, how are you feeling? And then just what were some of the conversations like with Wade, who seemed incredibly appreciative of everything that happened here on Tuesday?
I don't think Ford knew how to articulate anything. We've talked many times. It's just an overwhelming moment. He's wise enough, as is his family, to understand the magnitude of that. I think, similar to what I said post-game, I think a portion of the surprise probably added to the emotion. Considering how the game transpired, maybe that's a part of it. He's very humble. And so I think sometimes when things like that are bigger than even the dreams that you had are happening long before you would have ever anticipated it, as smart as he is, I don't know that you know what words to capture that moment. But his jersey will always be here, so he'll figure out how to say it better.
Hey, Buzz, is it important to follow up that win over Auburn how important is it then is to follow up that win and win at LSU, and why is that important if that's the case?
Yes, sir, we do want to win, regardless of opponent, regardless of locale. You guys probably know bits and pieces of this, but it's an opportunity for us to have a winning record on the road in SEC play. Considering the evidence of what this league is this year, I think that's a big deal. And so maybe to win your last home game and win your last road game in the same week, going into postseason play. Similar to what I told you after the game on Tuesday, there was a lot for us to diagnose. I understand the result, but our guys have been, again, receptive to what we've been teaching the last couple of days. We've probably spent more time on LSU than previous opponents just because it seems like it's been 9 years since we played them. I think it was game 5 that we played them. And so kind of had to knock out the cobwebs in my brain. And then they've changed. They're playing with 4 guards a lot more, almost exclusively than they did the first time we played them. They've added some actions. They're a little different defensively. So our prep has been good, and the things that we learned from Auburn has been good. And so,
Coach, Manny, when he came in right before you, mentioned a team meeting on Tuesday, allowed you guys to kind of flush some things. He credited it for allowing them to kind of play loose against Auburn. I wondered how you felt about that, and if you had the same kind of feeling from that following meeting.
Yeah, it was last Thursday. It was 2 days before last Thursday, before we played on Saturday. It was tremendous. I just have so much respect for our guys, their willingness to tell the truth, their ability to communicate with one another the truth, even though there's a lot of long-standing relationships there. I think some of that happens even with our staff, 106 years that we've been together. But even though there's a lot of love, to still be able to tell the truth and receive the truth just speaks to the depth of the relationships. There was a lot of things shared that day. It was very impactful to everyone's heart. Most of it was ball, but there was a lot of other things that surround ball. So I think it was healthy for everybody.
Manny also said, he was talking about kind of the rough stretch he's had this season. He said that, you probably know him better than he knows himself, and that, you understand how tough it's been for him. From what we saw last year, what he did about this time of year, do you feel kind of like that, I guess, is possible again? And are you seeing glimpses of maybe his confidence and what he's able to do?
I thought he played great on Tuesday from an efficiency standpoint. I adore Mo. He's probably the most beautiful human being I've ever coached. His his time prior to Texas A&M, there's some uniqueness to the story that's never been told, and he's never going to tell it. But he knows that I'm aware of it. And like many of our returning players, they've all had opportunities to leave. And I think one thing that's held us together is they know that we care about them, and they care about one another, whether they're playing good or whether they're playing bad. I think I met Mo right before COVID started, like literally before COVID started. And I didn't really know how to handle the pandemic when the lockdown happened. And so I probably had more time than I've ever had in my life as an adult. And I think to some degree, when I think back to that 5 years ago, the relationship that I have with four, but how it grew, same with Mo. I didn't even know what Zoom was. And then I realized that I wasn't very good at Zoom because of my body language, and I think I'm more of an interactive person. And I walked at least 5 miles a day during COVID, a lot of times many more, and I would just call them, and I wasn't in a rush. And so I got to know them probably at a level that you typically don't in normal recruiting. I thought that I didn't necessarily think that they would have the impact that they have had. But when I think back to all of the trials and tribulations throughout their 4 years here, all of the things, all of the stats, but just the strength of the relationship. I knew Henry when he was a sophomore in high school. Obviously, I wasn't employed here, and knew both of his parents. And when Miss Coleman called to tell me that Henry was in the portal, I said, well, just call me back whenever you guys have made a decision. And she said, well, are you not going to recruit him? And I said, yes, ma'am, I did, right? And he called and committed that day. And obviously he couldn't come on a visit, but I wouldn't necessarily say that I know Mo better than Mo knows himself, but just have like his mentor that was here that we took the picture with prior to his parents showing up. His parents didn't have the right bag. Like you have to have a bag. What is it, sweetie?
Like a clear bag?
Yeah. So they were here. They just didn't have the right bag. His mentor has been the most loyal person other than Mr. Taylor and Miss Taylor and the Coleman family. Like, yeah. I hope he has another March like he did last time.
Buzz, after COVID, most coaches across the country went to a more casual look on the sideline.
Yes, ma'am.
That was not something you've ever done. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about your style on the sideline and why it's important to you to always dress up.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I don't want to be negative towards anybody that chooses that. For me, I'm living a dream bigger than any that I ever had. And coaches were, and in my opinion still are, even though others disagree, I think in many respects they're the last bastion of hope. And so we ask our guys to give their best. And just because of how I was raised, the coaches that were a part of my life growing up, it's the respectful thing to do to the game. It's the respectful thing to do for me, for those that have helped me. And I think it's the respectful thing to do for the institution I represent. And it's the respectful thing to do for the families that have trusted me with their sons. And not just me, those that are allowed to coach on my staff have always wore a suit. And I told them that wasn't a choice. And I know that lives were changed in many respects during the pandemic. But for me, I didn't want it to change my dress code.
Can I just follow up? kind of a two-part. One, does someone specific make all of your clothes, or do you just buy?
It's the only hobby I've ever had.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I've never accepted a gift or a donation or a sponsorship or an NIL deal as a coach from anybody, anywhere I've lived. That's important to me. We tell our players, you get what you earn. And so I've paid for everything that you've ever seen me wear. And that's important to me too. And whether it's the car dealer, the Rolex watchmaker, the suit tailor, I don't want anything for free because I want to feel like I earned it. And so, I don't fish, I don't golf, I don't hunt. I don't do all the things that you're supposed to do as a hobby, and that's just always been my hobby.
Going back to your relationship and your history with Wade, because of that, and y'all being so close, we all know it's coming, but what's it gonna mean to you? Or is it gonna mean anything special to you, particularly anything else, when he actually sets this record and forever is gonna be known as the highest scoring player at Texas A&M?
Sure. I've always thought that as all of this has transpired that would happen. I don't think we initially set out as if that was what it was going to be. And honestly, as I told you guys last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, I don't think it's interrupted how he's went about his business. He has distributed the ball more this year than ever before. He's taken less shots than ever before. And I think it's because he's aware of our team and he wants our team to do well. And I know there's other records he has set or will set. But he's earned all of it. And he scored a lot of baskets that only players like him can score. Not all of them have been, hey, I drew up a tricky play and we fooled everybody and he scored. I guess you've seen almost half of his baskets would be my guess. He's just a talented scorer. So any and all records that he sets, I'm happy for
Does it
him.
give you an extra sense of pride that you were the guy that brought him here?
So, I only read these when we go on the road. And I love history, period. But what I do is, as I'm reading these snippets, I'll circle them. And then when I get home, I cut it out and I have a journal and I tape them in my journal. And so I've only done it for road games. But some of these things that Brad puts in here, I really enjoy looking at. On the offensive rebound record, I know we probably should put a caveat in that they didn't start tracking that until you graduated from college, but I like seeing all of the history, not just the ones that are on our current team, not just the ones that were here that I was involved with when I was an assistant. It just, it's 113 years of basketball at a place, and I coached Team 113 at Virginia Tech too, which is somewhat ironic. I just like looking at all of that stuff, like thinking through, even if you're only talking about our tenure, if you're talking about individual players, if you're talking about, there's things that I do on my game charts, like Coach Pearl. Coach Pearl has been employed in the SEC for 17 years, 2 different institutions, as you know. And, I do a coach's study every May. And then throughout the year, when we play someone, I update it. And so I just love the numbers. I love the history, not just the players, but also the coaches, but also the former coaches, the past coaches. Wimp Sanderson is one of my favorite people ever. And so I like seeing where Coach Oates is as it relates to Coach Sanderson. Cliff Ellis and I are extremely close. When he was at Auburn, what Coach Pearl's done, I just like looking at all that stuff.
Curious with Wade, have you sensed there's any like, let's hurry up and get this points thing over with so that the next goal can be reached with postseason and the team stuff like that at all?
I don't think so. I would say, Travis, that the only time I know he's on social media, so I'm sure people are contacting him through that. But like when we're together, me and him, but just our program, I think the only time that's brought up is when we're doing this sort of thing. I don't think ever has he felt any anxiousness in regards to, I hope I get it, I hope I don't get it, when am I going to get it? I don't think he's necessarily dodged it. He's aware of it. I think the 2 games he missed that week when we played Alabama and Kentucky, I know other than the 1 game in December where we decided to sit him out, I know he wanted to play like all players want to play. I actually think that was healthy for him because since he's been here, maybe not in November of his freshman year, but every other month he's been here, he's been in the fight. And for him to have 1 week where he couldn't practice and he couldn't play, I'm telling you, the things he was saying on the bench and during timeouts here versus Alabama and at Kentucky, we got a technical foul at Kentucky. And I know my history in regards to technical fouls. I didn't know that it was on our players because of the emotion they were showing in a positive way after Mo's dunk. But 4 was in the middle of that down there on the bench. And I actually think that's been really healthy for him emotionally and mentally to stay engaged in a different sort of way. But I don't think he's had any angst towards any of this other than when addressing it in this kind of forum.
I just one more question on Manny. You mentioned on Monday that throughout the last couple of weeks he had been among the most positive players in the program. Just he's got that saying like just keep going.
That's how he responds to every text.
Yeah, and I'm just curious how you saw him maybe cling to that and that how that maybe motivated him to stay positive even though maybe results weren't showing during play.
Yeah, I think it just speaks to who he is. And they were asking about the meeting on Thursday. I'm telling you, like the transparency within the group, I've never experienced it as a head coach. Like the really positive things, but also the negative things. Their ability to communicate it in a sincere way and receive it just speaks to their humility. And Mo's aware that he's as good of a one-on-one scorer as there is, and he knows that we would love him to play great. But he's also very aware when he's not playing great, and he accepts that. That doesn't mean that he's not disappointed, but from a diligence standpoint, no player in the last 4 years has spent more time in the gym working than Mo. In the weight room, in the training room, on the court. More than Dex, who was 27 when he played here. He has a great maturity, and he lives in a very narrow lane and always has. I don't think he spends a lot of time on video games. I don't think he's just completely consumed with social media. I'll see him on the phone and I'll go, hey, click this button, settings, click this button, screen time, click that other button so I can see what you're looking at. I gave Mo a book that hadn't been released last Friday when we left to go to Florida. And the book was released this week, and I had pre-ordered one for everybody in the group. And I told the group today when I was giving it to them, guys, I've already given one to Mo and Solo because both those guys read anything I give them. And so as I'm passing the books around, I go, Mo, you already read it? He goes, yes, sir, I read it last weekend. His lane, I think that's part of why he's so self-aware as a player, because if you ask him, hey, tell me about number 5 from LSU. Rock's in charge of personnel. Hey, Mo, Rock's not here. Run personnel. He can articulate it as if he's director of player personnel for Texas A&M. Like he loves ball. And so when he's good, he knows he's playing good. And when he's not, he knows that too.